never told my daughter what I was hiding in a safety deposit box downtown. When she married a man I didn't trust, I made sure he'd never find Box 247. Then one morning, the bank manager called me in a panic. "Ma'am, your son-in-law is here demanding access to your box. He claims his wife is in danger and you're hiding something." I'd been waiting for this moment 18 months of watching documenting, preparing for the day I knew would come. What was in that box would either save my daughter's life or cost me everything, and I had to act fast. I appreciate you being here and giving this story your time. Before we go any further, please drop a comment and share where you're watching from. It helps me know you're still with me. Also, a brief note, parts of this story are fictionalized for storytelling and educational purposes. Any resemblance to real individuals or circumstances is purely coincidental, but the message is intended to offer insight and value. My name is Diane Brennan, and this is the story of how I saved my daughter's life. It started with a dinner invitation in January 2024. My daughter Natalie, 32, married 2 years to Derek Mitchell, called asking me to come over Thursday night. Her voice sounded strained, but I told myself I was imagining things. I wasn't. When I arrived at their Westlake Hills home that evening, Natalie answered the door wearing a cardigan and long-sleeve blouse, despite the house being uncomfortably warm. I'd already removed my jacket. "Mom." She hugged me quickly, then immediately tugged her sleeves down over her wrists. "Derek's in the kitchen." My son-in-law appeared moments later, dish towel over his shoulder, smiling easily. "Diane, hope you're hungry. I'm trying a new recipe." "I thought Natalie was cooking," I said. "She was going to, but you know how she gets with timing." He laughed without warmth. "Figured I'd take over before she burned the vegetables again." "I only did that once," Natalie murmured. "Twice," Derek corrected. "Remember?" "Right, sorry." The automatic apology made my stomach tighten. At dinner, I watched my daughter more than I ate. She barely touched her food shoulders, hunched eyes flicking nervously toward Derek, before responding to anything I said. When I asked about her marketing job, Derek answered for her. "That project's going nowhere. They pile work on her without recognition. I tell her to demand better, but she's too accommodating. I'm sure Natalie can speak for herself," I said carefully. She glanced between us. "He's probably right, Mom." Probably right. That single word bothered me more than it should have. When Derek stood abruptly to grab the salt shaker, Natalie flinched a quick, involuntary jerk. She only relaxed once he sat back down. I recognized that reaction from my years volunteering at a women's shelter. That was the body language of someone expecting pain. His phone rang. The moment Derek left the room to answer, Natalie's entire posture changed. Her shoulders dropped. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath. "How are you really doing, sweetheart?" I asked quietly. She opened her mouth, but then Derek's footsteps echoed down the hall. Her expression went blank again. "I'm fine, Mom. Everything's fine." When she reached for her water glass, her sleeve rode up. A dark bruise circled her wrist like a bracelet, the kind that comes from someone gripping too hard. Our eyes met. She knew I'd seen it. She quickly pulled the sleeve down and changed the subject. "How's Christine, you two still meeting Tuesdays?" I let her redirect because I didn't know what else to do, but my mind was cataloging everything: the long sleeves in an overheated house, constant apologies that flinched the bruise. 20 minutes later, Derek was ushering me to the door. "Early morning tomorrow," he said, though it wasn't even 8:30. I hugged Natalie, holding on longer than she seemed comfortable with. "Call me any time," I whispered. "Day or night." She nodded but said nothing. During the drive home to Terrytown, my hands gripped the steering wheel too tight. Every detail replayed in my mind, the fear in Natalie's eyes, Derek controlling everything: the food, the conversation. Even when I left, I knew. Deep in my bones, in that place where a mother's instinct lives, I knew my daughter was in danger. But I couldn't prove it. Not yet. The next morning, I walked into a stationery store on South Congress Avenue and bought a leather-bound journal with cream-colored pages. In my car, I opened to the first page and wrote January 18th, 2024. Below that, I recorded everything from the night before, every detail, every word, every gesture that had made my stomach turn. I didn't know how long I'd need to keep writing or where this would lead. All I knew was this: I need to remember everything, because someday my daughter might need proof that what she was living through was real. And when that day came, I would be ready. The leather journal sat heavier in my hands than it should have. 2 months after that first dinner, I'd filled over 50 pages with observations I wished I wasn't writing. Each entry began the same way: date, time, location, followed by details that painted a picture I couldn't ignore. The patterns emerged quickly. Late January, Natalie canceled lunch twice. The first time, "Sorry, Mom, Derek needs me home this week." The second, a week later, "Derek needs me home again. Rain check." I documented her exact words. The shift from wanting to see me to prioritizing Derek's needs, the unnecessary apologies. We used to have lunch every Thursday without fail. When I finally visited their home in early February, I understood why Derek kept her isolated. Natalie's phone buzzed constantly every 20 or 30 minutes like clockwork. Each time her shoulders tensed. She'd glance at the screen, then at me, then back down. "Derek just likes to check in," she explained, though I hadn't asked. I counted 6 messages in 90 minutes. When she briefly showed me a photo, I glimpsed his latest text. "Who's there? How long are they staying?" That night, I wrote it all down. The frequency, the tension, the monitoring disguised as concern. By mid-February, new troubling patterns appeared during our phone calls. "Derek's handling our finances now," Natalie mentioned casually, though her voice wavered. "He's better with numbers." "What about your account at First National?" I asked carefully. Long pause. "I'm not sure. Derek set up a joint account. Everything went there, I think." She sounded uncertain about her own money. I noted the passive language Derek set up, not "we decided." The confusion about accessing accounts that had been hers since college. The physical changes worried me most. When we met for coffee at Mozart's in late February, I barely recognized my daughter. She'd lost weight. Her jeans hung loose at the waist. Dark circles shadowed her eyes despite heavy concealer that seemed particularly thick around her left cheekbone. "Work's been stressful," she said, stirring coffee she never drank. But when I asked about specific projects, Derek's words came from her mouth. "It's probably not important. I'm probably overreacting. Derek says I worry too much." Every opinion hedged, every thought qualified. My confident daughter had learned to doubt herself. During family gatherings, Derek now answered questions I asked Natalie directly. He monitored who she texted. The friend Ashley she used to mention constantly hadn't come up in weeks. When I asked, Natalie just shrugged. "We drifted apart, I guess." Drifted, as if friendships dissolved naturally without cause. The journal grew thicker with each visit. 50 pages of dated entries, direct quotes, behavioral patterns. I cross-referenced events, documented Derek's escalating control. One phrase appeared repeatedly in my notes. "Natalie always forgets things." Derek said it constantly at dinners and conversations, correcting her memory of events. Classic manipulation, making her question her own reality. Late February, I tried one more time. "Sweetheart, is everything really okay?" "Mom." Her voice held rehearsed exasperation. "I'm fine. Derek's just protective because he loves me. Please stop worrying." I wanted to push harder, but I'd learned from my shelter volunteer days pushing too hard drives victims further away. "Okay," I said softly, "but I'm always here. Anytime." "I know, love you." We hung up around 4:30 that afternoon. I stared at my phone, feeling helpless. 3 hours later, 11:47 p.m. a text arrived from Natalie's number. "Mom, I'm fine. Please stop worrying." I sat up in bed staring at those words. We'd already talked that afternoon. I'd already backed off. I hadn't contacted her since. So why was someone sending this now? I typed back, "Just wanted you to know I love you, sweetheart." Response came immediately. "Love you too." Too fast, too generic. Natalie always used more words, added emojis signed with her initial. I opened my journal and wrote a single sentence that made my blood run cold. February 28th, 2024, 11:47 p.m. Someone else sent that text. Someone else is monitoring our conversations. Someone is controlling her phone. I knew exactly who. March brought the answers I'd been dreading. After 2 months of watching my daughter disappear into Derek's control, I finally understood how thoroughly he'd isolated her. It started with a phone call I should have made weeks earlier. Ashley Morgan answered cautiously. "Mrs. Brennan, is Natalie okay?" Natalie's best friend since college shouldn't have to ask if she was okay. She should already know. That's what I'm trying to figure out, I said. When's the last time you talked to her? Last Thanksgiving, over 4 months ago. My stomach dropped. What happened? I noticed bruises on her arms like someone had grabbed her hard enough to leave marks. When I asked, she got defensive, said she'd bumped into something. Ashley's voice cracked. 2 days later, she texted saying Derek thought our friendship was unhealthy and she needed space. Then she blocked me completely. November, 3 months before I'd even started my journal. Derek had been hurting her longer than I'd realized. We met for coffee 2 days later. Ashley showed me text screenshots spanning a year. Natalie's messages went from warm and funny to one-word responses to nothing. A decade of friendship erased because Ashley had noticed bruises. He's systematically taking away everything that makes her herself, Ashley said, reading through my journal, which had grown to 75 pages. She provided a written statement that night. More evidence for the case I was building without knowing if I'd ever use it. But evidence meant nothing without understanding legal options. By mid-March, I was researching domestic violence patterns online at 2 a.m. Every warning sign matched my journal entries with terrifying precision: isolation, financial control, constant monitoring, gaslighting, physical violence disguised as accidents. Derek was following a playbook. A friend recommended Philip Langford, a family attorney with over 20 years of experience. I met him at his downtown office late March, my journal wrapped in my arms like armor. Philip was mid-50s with kind eyes that had seen too many cases like this. He read all 75 pages carefully before looking up. This is remarkably thorough documentation. You've done everything right. So we can help her? His expression shifted. Without Natalie's cooperation or documented injuries from medical professionals, legal intervention is extremely limited. Texas law requires victims to request protective orders themselves. We can't force protection on someone not ready to accept it. The words hit hard. So we do nothing? No. Keep doing exactly this. Document everything. Photos of injuries if you can safely obtain them. Recordings if legal. Witness statements. Build a comprehensive case. He leaned forward. When Natalie's ready to leave, and that moment will come, she'll need every piece of evidence you're gathering. What about their prenuptial agreement? His interest sharpened. Can you get a copy? Financial documents often reveal control patterns we can use. I nodded, though I had no idea how. One critical warning, Philip added. Don't confront Derek directly. Men like him escalate when threatened. If he realizes you're building a case, he could become more dangerous to Natalie. Patience is your greatest weapon. Patience, when every instinct screamed to act. But I understood. Pushing Natalie before she was ready could drive her deeper into his control. You're not watching her suffer, Philip said gently. You're documenting it, creating the foundation for her freedom. When she's ready, everything will be in place. I left with a strategy but a heavy heart. 3 weeks later, at a family gathering in mid-April, I watched Derek's hand close around Natalie's upper arm, not gentle, but controlling. Her face went blank, that practiced compliance I'd seen before. She didn't pull away, didn't protest, just absorbed whatever quiet threat he delivered through that grip. Around us, relatives laughed oblivious. I stood 10 feet away, helpless, watching my daughter held captive in plain sight. That night, I wrote April 15th, 2024. This isn't a marriage. This is captivity. And I will free her from it, no matter how long it takes. The knock came on a Tuesday morning in early May, unexpected, urgent. Natalie stood on my porch alone, car keys clutched in her hand, eyes darting toward the street like someone might see her. Derek's at a work conference in Houston, she said, voice too bright. Thought I'd stop by. Then I saw her face. A bruise darkened her left cheekbone, poorly concealed under heavy foundation. Her lower lip had a healing split. When she moved to hug me, her movements were stiff, careful, protecting sore ribs. What happened? She touched her cheek. Fell down the stairs last week. Clumsy, right? Fell down the stairs. The oldest lie in the book. Let me make tea. Use the bathroom if you need to. The moment she disappeared down the hall, I moved fast. Her purse sat open on my counter. I photographed the contents with my phone wallet, empty, no credit cards, no cash. Just her driver's license. Then I captured the car in my driveway, Derek's black sedan, not Natalie's silver Honda. When she returned, I smiled. We haven't taken a photo together in forever. Come here. I pulled her close and snapped 3 shots. In each one, that bruise showed clearly despite the makeup. Evidence, finally concrete photographic evidence. Over tea, I asked gently, "Where's your car, honey?" "In the shop, 6 weeks now. Derek says the mechanic keeps finding problems." She stirred her tea. "He drives me everywhere." 6 weeks without her own vehicle. Complete dependence on him. Then unexpectedly, she started talking. I tried keeping a journal. Writing helped. Her voice dropped. "Derek found it. Said I was being dramatic, exaggerating normal disagreements. He destroyed it. Told me I didn't need to write anymore." My chest tightened. He'd eliminated her private thoughts just like he'd eliminated her friends, her money, her freedom. "He monitors everything now," she whispered. "My phone emails where I go. I can't breathe without him knowing." I reached for her hand. "Natalie, his work's been stressful lately. When he has bad days, he gets tense. It's not his fault." Bad days at work equaled bruises on my daughter. She was making excuses for violence she couldn't name. I wanted to scream, wanted to grab her and run somewhere Derek could never find us. But Philip's voice echoed. "Pushing too hard drives them deeper into control. You know, your father and I always believed you could handle anything," I said carefully. At the mention of Thomas, my late husband, her father gone 12 years now, Natalie's eyes filled with tears. "Dad would hate what I've become." "Your father's love is in everything I do," I said firmly. "And I'm not going anywhere, no matter what I'm here." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. Derek's name flashed. Her entire body went rigid. She answered immediately. "Hi. Yes, at Mom's. Just a quick visit. Okay, I'll leave now." She stood grabbing her purse. "I have to go. Derek's conference ended early. He wants me home when he arrives." 3 minutes. 1 phone call and she was gone. That evening I uploaded the photos to encrypted cloud storage I'd created specifically for this evidence. The bruise, her empty wallet, Derek's car. 4 photographs proving what I'd documented for months. I opened my journal leather binding worn from constant use and added today's entry. May 7th, 2024. 125 pages now, each one a piece of the prison Derek had built around my daughter. Before closing my laptop, I checked Derek's company website for conference schedules. Nothing. No Houston conference that week, no events at all. He'd lied. Given Natalie permission to visit me alone and injured with a fabricated excuse about being out of town. But why? Derek controlled everything. Why suddenly allow this freedom? Why let her come to me with visible bruises in his car with clear evidence of his control? I stared at those photos on my screen at my daughter's bruised face, and cold dread settled in my stomach. He was planning something. And whatever it was, I had a feeling time was running out. 6 weeks after Natalie's unexpected visit, I watched Derek humiliate my daughter in front of 20 people. The graduation party for my cousin's daughter should have been a celebration. Instead, it became the moment I realized patient waiting wasn't enough anymore. Derek and Natalie arrived late. He wore tension like a second skin, jaw tight, eyes hard. Natalie walked 2 steps behind, shoulders curved inward, making herself smaller. During dinner, Derek's voice cut through the casual conversation around us. "She can't even remember simple directions. I have to do everything for her." Nearby, chatter died. Relatives glanced over, uncomfortable. Natalie sat frozen, staring at her untouched plate. She didn't defend herself, just absorbed his words like someone who'd heard them so often they'd become truth. I checked my watch, 6:47 p.m., wrote the exact quote in my phone. 20 witnesses to Derek tearing down my daughter publicly. 10 minutes later, Natalie excused herself. I followed. I found her in the bathroom, crying, silently pressing tissues against her eyes to erase evidence before returning. "Sweetheart." I closed the door behind us. She startled, quickly wiping her face. "I'm fine, just needed a minute." What he said out there, "I can't do anything right," she whispered. "He's always fixing my mistakes. I forget things, I mess up." "Stop. That's not you talking. That's what he's made you believe." I gripped her shoulders gently. The Natalie I raised, graduated with honors, ran marketing campaigns, was confident and capable until Derek decided she wasn't. Her face crumpled. You don't understand. It's complicated. If I just tried harder. A knock interrupted us. Natalie. Derek's voice tight with anger. You've been in there 5 minutes. Everything okay? 5 minutes. He'd tracked her within 5 minutes. She straightened, immediately, mask sliding back. Coming! She left without another word. I stood alone, hands shaking. This wasn't private anymore. Derek was bold enough to humiliate her publicly. The escalation I'd been documenting was accelerating. That evening I drove to Christine Palmer's house. Christine had been my best friend for 30 years. We'd met when our daughters were in elementary school. She was 60 now, like me, a retired nurse with steady hands and a steadier heart. Someone who'd seen me through Thomas's passing and never asked for anything in return. In her kitchen, everything I'd held in for months poured out. He humiliated her publicly today, just tore her apart in front of everyone, and she sat there taking it like she deserved it. Christine listened, expression darkening. When I finished, she leaned forward with unusual intensity. Diane, I don't talk about this much, but in my early 30s, I was in an abusive relationship. Took 3 years to leave. I recognize every sign you're describing because I lived them. My breath caught. You've done everything right, documentation, legal consultation. But you need more now, professional help. Someone who can gather evidence legally, who knows how these cases escalate. She wrote down a number. Harold Meadows, former detective. Tell him I sent you. 2 days later, I met Harold at a quiet coffee shop in South Austin. He was 55, gray-haired, with the calm competence of someone who'd seen everything twice. I showed him my journal, 150 pages, along with photographs and timeline. He read for 20 minutes, finally looked up. Mrs. Brennan, this is one of the clearest patterns I've seen in 15 years. He's escalating public humiliation, increasing control, classic trauma responses. We need to move carefully, but quickly. He explained services surveillance on Derek background checks, evidence gathering witness interviews. Everything I'd been doing alone, but with professional resources. $3,500 retainer. Detailed reports, photographs, documentation that holds up in court. I wrote the check immediately from my emergency fund. How soon? 48 hours. I'll coordinate with your attorney, too. Philip Langford. He nodded approvingly. Good attorney. This'll work. For the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't fighting alone. On July 15th, Harold's first report arrived. I opened it expecting surveillance of Derek at work. Instead, photographs of Derek at the Marriott downtown bar meeting an unidentified woman, mid-30s professional attire. 90-minute meetings. Harold had observed 2 over the past week, same woman, same location, Tuesday and Thursday evenings. I stared at those images. The woman leaning in Derek, showing her something on his phone, both looking serious. An affair, but their body language felt wrong. Not romantic, transactional, businesslike. I thought about Derek's escalating control, his conference lie in May, the way he'd been planning something. My mind went to the worst possibility. I forwarded the report to Philip with one question. What could this mean? Whatever Derek was planning, we were running out of time to stop it. On August 1st, Harold's first weekly surveillance report arrived at my door. Thick envelope, dozens of photographs, detailed timestamps, vehicle tracking logs. Derek's pattern was becoming clear. Harold identified the woman Derek had been meeting, Vanessa Price, 34, who worked in Derek's company's legal compliance department. Not a romantic affair, the meetings were professional. Document reviews, financial paperwork discussions. But Harold's instincts told him something was off. Early August, Harold captured footage of Derek at a Home Depot rope, heavy-duty plastic sheeting, industrial duct tape, cleaning supplies, bleach ammonia, flashlight, batteries. The purchases didn't match any home improvement project. Harold's note on the report. This is a pattern I've seen before. He's preparing for concealment, not construction. Harold ran a comprehensive background check. A 2019 workplace complaint surfaced harassment allegations, quietly settled with a confidentiality agreement to avoid scandal. Mid-August, Harold tracked down Martin Holloway, a former colleague of Derek's. Martin agreed to meet at a diner outside the city. Martin's story was damning. Derek had embezzled $45,000 over 18 months from their previous employer. Martin had confronted him. Derek threatened Martin at 2 a.m. outside Martin's home, mentioning Martin's young children, describing their school pickup routine. The company forced Derek to resign quietly to avoid publicity. He landed a new job within weeks. I felt sick. Harold's investigation expanded to Natalie's finances. With Philip's help, we obtained records showing Derek had forged Natalie's signatures on trust fund withdrawal forms. Over the past year, he'd systematically stolen $82,000 from the $800,000 trust Thomas had established for Natalie 12 years ago. $82,000, stolen from my daughter, from Thomas's legacy. Philip reviewed the financial documents carefully. "These signatures are clearly forged," he said, pointing to inconsistencies. "This is felony fraud, multiple counts. Combined with the domestic violence evidence, we're building an exceptionally strong criminal case." But he warned, "We still need Natalie's cooperation to press charges, and we need to be careful. Cornering him could escalate the danger." I maintained normal contact with Natalie, weekly phone calls, monthly visits, careful not to alert Derek that we were building a case against him. My journal reached 200 pages by late August, every entry cross-referenced with Harold's reports, photos, financial documents, witness statements. The evidence was comprehensive. Christine reminded me constantly, patience, strategy. You're protecting her by doing this the right way. On August 30th, Harold called with urgent news. "Diane, we have a problem. Derek's researching home security systems for your neighborhood. I found records of him documenting your daily routine, when you leave for errands, when you return, which routes you take. He's not just watching Natalie anymore. He's watching you." The hunter had realized I was hunting him, and he was hunting back. After Harold's warning that Derek was surveilling me, keeping evidence at home felt dangerous. I needed a location Derek couldn't access, couldn't breach, couldn't destroy. On September 8th, I met with Douglas Kemp, the manager at First National Bank on 301 Congress Avenue in downtown Austin. He was in his 50s, professional, discreet. "I need the largest safety deposit box you have," I told him, "and I need absolute security." Douglas led me to the vault room. "Box 247, he said. 10 by 10 inches, steel reinforced. It requires dual authentication, your personal key and the bank's master key both turned simultaneously. Only your name will appear on the access log. Anyone else would need a court order." He handed me a small brass key. "This is your only copy. Keep it with you at all times. If you lose it, we'll have to drill the box open at significant cost." I slipped the key into my purse. From that day forward, it never left my side. On September 9th, I transferred everything from my home to Box 247. The original leather journal, 225 pages now binding, worn from constant use, every page dated and detailed. 27 encrypted photographs on USB drives, Natalie's bruises, her empty wallet, Derek's car, and their driveway injuries that told the story words couldn't capture. Harold's complete investigation reports, printed and digital backup, surveillance photos, vehicle tracking logs, the Home Depot receipt, documentation of Derek's meetings with Vanessa Price, financial documents proving fraud, forged signatures on trust fund authorization forms, withdrawal records showing $82,000 stolen systematically, bank statements, transfer receipts, audio recordings. Derek's verbal abuse at the June graduation party, time-stamped at 6:47 p.m., with 20 witnesses present. Written statements from Martin Holloway and Ashley Morgan. The prenuptial agreement copy Philip had obtained from courthouse records. Thomas's will showing the $800,000 trust established for Natalie 12 years ago. Derek's background check results, the 2019 harassment complaint, the forced resignation, the embezzlement Martin had described. I also created an encrypted cloud backup, password protected. I shared the password only with Philip and Christine. If something happened to me, they could access everything. Mid-September, I added new documents to the box, Natalie's life insurance policies. I discovered Derek had increased her coverage from $500,000 to $2.5 million in July. The same month, he started buying rope and plastic sheeting at Home Depot. Philip examined the insurance documents with growing alarm. This changes everything. Combined with the computer searches Harold documented and the Cayman Islands ticket, this shows clear intent. He's not just abusing her. He's planning something permanent. We need to move to 24/7 surveillance, Harold said. If he's preparing to act, we'll know the moment he moves. Late September, Harold captured video footage of Derek meeting Vanessa again. Their body language was urgent. They appeared to be discussing a timeline. I visited Box 247 weekly, adding new evidence as Harold delivered reports. Each visit, I looked at the growing collection proof of 18 months of systematic abuse, financial fraud, and escalating danger. I kept a working diary at home, a decoy with mundane observations. If Derek broke in and found it, he'd think that's all I had. The real evidence remained locked in steel, protected by 2 keys accessible only to me. On September 28th, late at night, my phone rang. Natalie. Her voice was strange, flat, careful. I love you, Mom. Remember that, okay? No matter what happens, remember I love you. The line went dead. I tried calling back. Voicemail. I sat in my kitchen holding the phone, my heart racing. That wasn't goodbye. That was a warning. Whatever Derek was planning, it was happening soon. October passed in a fog of surveillance reports, financial audits, and growing dread. Harold's reports showed Derek's pattern intensifying. Mid-October, he purchased rope and heavy-duty plastic sheeting at a hardware store. Not the kind you use for painting, the kind you use to contain a scene. On October 25th, Harold filmed Derek meeting Vanessa Price, the insurance specialist, from his office at a downtown cafe. Their conversation lasted 47 minutes. Harold couldn't hear the words, but the documents on the table were clear life insurance claim procedures, beneficiary verification forms, death certificate processing timelines. Derek was learning how to collect. My journal grew darker. By late October, it had reached 250 pages. Each entry felt heavier than the last. Then on October 31st, Halloween night, everything accelerated. My phone rang at 11:47 p.m. The caller ID showed unknown number. I answered immediately. Natalie, her voice was a rushed whisper. Mom, I don't have much time. I'm at a payphone outside a gas station. Derek thinks I'm throwing up in the bathroom at a restaurant. My heart pounded. Are you safe? For now. Listen, 2 days ago, Derek left his laptop open while he took a shower. I saw a folder on his desktop labeled insurance_plan_final. I opened it. Mom, there's a document with a timeline, a plan, dates, instructions. I grabbed a pen. What kind of plan? How to stage a home invasion, life insurance investigation timelines, Cayman Islands bank account setup. He's been researching how to make deaths look accidental. My blood ran cold. Did you take pictures? Yes. I used the old phone Ashley smuggled to me last month, a cheap burner phone with no SIM card, just Wi-Fi. Derek doesn't know I have it. I keep it hidden in a box of tampons he'd never touch. I connected to the neighbor's open Wi-Fi while he was showering and sent 14 photos to the encrypted email account you set up for me at the library. Then I deleted the browsing history and hid the phone again. He has no idea. Natalie, you were incredibly brave and smart. Her voice cracked. Mom, I'm scared. I think he's planning something soon. There's a date on the calendar, December 15th, and there's a flight confirmation for December 22nd. One-way ticket to Grand Cayman, just his name, not mine. I wrote everything down, hands shaking. Listen to me. I'm going to get you out, but I need you to stay calm, stay safe, and act normal around him. Can you do that? I'll try. I love you, Natalie, more than anything. I love you too, Mom. The line went dead. I immediately forwarded Natalie's email to Harold and Philip. Within 24 hours, Harold had the images verified by a digital forensics expert and printed with timestamps. The evidence was damning. Browser history, how to stage a home invasion, undetectable poisons, life insurance payout investigation timeline, Cayman Islands banking laws, document file insurance, _plan_final. DOCX, with a 2-phase plan and financial breakdown, flight confirmation, Grand Cayman one-way, December 22nd, 2024. Natalie's caution had saved her life. By using a device Derek didn't control and Wi-Fi he couldn't monitor, she'd smuggled out the proof that would eventually convict him. But now we had less than 2 months, and Derek had a deadline. The clock was ticking. If you're still here with me at this point, please leave a comment below. Honestly, this is the moment I really want to know how you're feeling. If you were in this situation, would you choose to confront the truth or stay silent and wait for the right moment to stay safe? Share your real thoughts with me. We're right on the edge of something that will change everything. And before we continue, a gentle note, the next part of this story includes some dramatized elements created for storytelling and educational purposes and may not be entirely factual. If this isn't for you, you're welcome to stop the video here. November 3rd, 2024, I sat in Philip's office with Harold and Detective Frank Daniels reviewing the photos Natalie had sent from the burner phone. Harold had worked with a digital forensics specialist to authenticate every image. The timestamps matched. The metadata was intact. The evidence was admissible. Detective Frank spread printouts across the table. Derek's browser history painted a chilling picture. How to stage a home invasion. Life insurance payout investigation timeline. Texas self-defense laws. Undetectable poisons. Cayman Islands offshore banking. Each search was dated and time-stamped. Each one showed intent. The most damning piece was the document titled insurance_plan_final.docx. The file contained a two-phase plan, staged Diane's death as a home invasion. Natalie inherits $2.5 million. Within 6 months, arrange Natalie's death. Derek inherits everything $2. $5 million from Diane's policy. $800,000 trust fund from Thomas and joint assets. Total financial goal, $3.75 million. Target date, December 22nd, 2024. My daughter's life had been reduced to a financial transaction. Harold documented Derek's movements. November 5th, industrial cleaning chemicals purchased in small batches. November 10th, high-powered flashlight and batteries. November 15th, Martin Holloway contacted Harold. Derek had threatened him in 2022 after Martin confronted him about embezzlement. He said if I ever spoke about it again, I'd regret it. Natalie was supposed to join us for Thanksgiving. At the last minute, she texted, "Derek says we're going to his parents." "I'm sorry, Mom." Surveillance showed they never left their apartment. Derek kept her inside all day. The next morning, my phone rang at 9:47 a.m. Douglas Kemp, the branch manager at First National Bank. "Mrs. Brennan, I need to speak with you immediately. Your son-in-law was just here." My blood went cold. Derek at the bank. He arrived 20 minutes ago, demanding access to Box 247. He claimed you'd given him permission that his wife was in danger and you were hiding evidence. He became aggressive when I refused. He said, "I know what's in there, and I know you can't stop me from getting it." I gripped the phone. Douglas Derek Mitchell has no legal right to that box. Only my name is on the access log. Under no circumstances can he access it. I made that clear, but he leaned across my desk and said, "I'll find another way. You can't protect her forever. I filed an incident report and flagged your box for additional security. I'll be there within the hour." I called Philip and Harold immediately. We met at the bank at 11 a.m. Douglas escorted us to the vault. Box 247 is secure, but if your son-in-law knows about this box, he may attempt something drastic. Philip spoke firmly. "Derek Mitchell is under investigation. This incident will be documented. If he returns, call police immediately." I stared at Box 247, the small steel door holding 18 months of evidence. Derek knew. He was hunting for proof, and if he found it, he'd destroy it. Harold's voice was urgent. "Diane, we're out of time. If he's desperate enough to confront a bank manager, he'll do worse." The next morning, Harold called at 6 a.m. Diane Derek just purchased a one-way ticket to the Cayman Islands. Departure, December 22nd. Natalie's name isn't on it. The floor dropped out from under me. 3 weeks. I called Philip. "We move now." By 9 a.m., we were in his office with Detective Frank and Rachel Klein, the Assistant District Attorney. Detective Frank laid out the strategy. "We have circumstantial evidence for conspiracy. The search's insurance increase flight booking. But conspiracy cases take time. We arrest him on fraud and forgery, $127,000 with clear paper trails. Fast, clean, indisputable. We arrest December 9th and hold him while we finalize the conspiracy case." Rachel Klein nodded. Use financial crimes to isolate the defendant immediately, then build the murder conspiracy case while he's locked up. Smarter than rushing and risking bail. Philip looked at me. Diane, your documentation gave us everything. The Journal, Herald's surveillance financial records, Natalie's photos. It's all admissible. I took a deep breath when, December 9th. We served Derek at work extract Natalie simultaneously. By end of day, your daughter is safe. I looked at the calendar. December 9th was circled in red. 2 weeks until rescue. 3 weeks until his flight. The war was about to begin. On December 1st, 4 of us sat around the conference table in Philip's office, Herald Detective Frank Phillip and me. Between us lay 2 weeks a plane ticket and a plan to save my daughter's life. Philip spoke first. We file for an emergency protective order tomorrow. Judge Martha Reynolds' family court 30 years on the bench. She's our best shot. Herald laid out surveillance photos spanning 18 months. This timeline shows escalation, isolation, financial control, threats, purchases consistent with crime scene preparation. And this, he tapped the flight confirmation, is his exit strategy. Detective Frank nodded. On December 9th, we execute arrest warrants for fraud and forgery. We serve Derek at his workplace to avoid confrontation at home. Simultaneously, officers escort Natalie to safety. She'll stay with Christine Palmer until we secure permanent protection. I looked at the faces around the table, the lawyer, the investigator, the detective, and I thought, this is what it takes. Not just a mother's love, an army. On December 3rd, I returned to First National Bank and opened Box 247 one more time. Douglas Kemp handed me the brass key, and together we unlocked the steel door. Inside was everything. Leather journal, 300 pages, meticulously dated 27 encrypted USB drives with photos of Natalie's bruises, Derek's surveillance injuries, Harold's investigation reports, surveillance logs, vehicle tracking purchase, receipts, financial documents, forged signatures, withdrawal records, $82,000 stolen from Natalie's trust, $45,000 embezzled from Martin's company, audio recordings, Derek's verbal abuse at the June graduation party, witness statements, Martin Holloway, Ashley Morgan, legal documents, prenuptial agreement, Thomas's will, $800,000 trust for Natalie insurance policy increased from $500,000 to $2. $5 million in July 2024. Derek's background, 2019 harassment complaint, forced resignation. Philip and Detective Frank spent 2 days organizing everything into a prosecutorial file. On December 5th, they presented the evidence to Judge Reynolds. She reviewed it for 3 hours. This is one of the most comprehensive domestic violence cases I've seen in 30 years, she said quietly, and one of the most terrifying. The evidence shows credible threat of imminent harm to both women. I'm issuing an emergency protective order, effective immediately. Judge Reynolds signed the order at 4:30 p.m. on December 6th. It prohibited Derek from contacting Diane, or Natalie required him to surrender firearms and authorized law enforcement to remove him from the residence. The legal fortress was in place. At 10 a.m. on December 9th, Detective Frank and 2 uniformed officers entered Derek's office with an arrest warrant. Derek Mitchell, you're under arrest for criminal fraud, forgery, and embezzlement. You have the right to remain silent. Derek's face went blank. No shock, no anger, just cold calculation as officers cuffed his hands. At the same moment, 2 patrol officers arrived at Derek's apartment. Natalie opened the door, eyes wide with fear and hope. Ms. Brennan, we're here to escort you to safety. Your mother is waiting. By noon, Natalie was at Christine's house, wrapped in a blanket, drinking tea and crying in my arms. You're safe now, I whispered. He can't hurt you anymore. She looked at me, tears streaming. How long have you been planning this? 18 months, I said, every single day. At 2 p.m. on December 11th, Derek's bail hearing took place. Marcus Webb requested bail, citing Derek's community ties and lack of prior violent convictions. Rachel Klein rose with the evidence folder. Your Honor, the state opposes bail. Mr. Mitchell poses an extreme flight risk. He purchased a one-way ticket to the Cayman Islands departing December 22nd, no return date. He embezzled $127,000 and has offshore accounts. Evidence shows he planned to harm 2 people for $3.75 million. If released, he will disappear. Philip added, "Your Honor, Natalie Mitchell and her mother live in fear that Derek will finish what he started. The one-way ticket isn't a vacation, it's an escape plan." Judge Reynolds reviewed the evidence for 20 minutes. "Mr. Mitchell, the evidence shows you are a flight risk and a danger to the community. Bail is denied. You will remain in custody at Travis County Jail pending trial." Derek showed no emotion as officers led him away. Outside the courtroom, Natalie exhaled for the first time in weeks. "He can't get to me now." I squeezed her hand. "You're safe, completely safe." December 12 to February 2025, recovery and preparation. Derek remained in Travis County Jail for the next 3 months. Marcus Webb filed multiple bail motions, all denied. Philip filed for divorce on Natalie's behalf and extended the protective order. Natalie began twice-weekly therapy with Dr. Westfield, slowly processing 18 months of trauma. In late December, Natalie finally read the journal I'd kept. She cried as she saw entries from January 2024, the first dinner where I saw fear in her eyes, and October when I documented bruises from the grocery store. "You remembered things I'd forgotten," she whispered. "Things I convinced myself didn't happen." In February, Natalie gave a formal statement to Detective Frank confirming 18 months of abuse. The journal corroborated every detail. By early March, the prosecution had finalized the case. Witness list: Diane, Natalie, Ashley Martin, Harold Douglas, Christine. Evidence journal over 400 pages. Now 27 photos, financial documents, surveillance footage, Derek's search history, the insurance _plan _final.docx file. On March 16th, I returned to Box 247 one final time before trial. I placed the completed journal inside, locked the steel door, and walked out into the spring air. Thomas I kept our promise. Now we finish this. On March 18th, I walked into courtroom 4B of the Travis County Courthouse. Judge Martha Reynolds presided from the bench. 12 jurors sat in 2 rows. Natalie sat in the gallery behind the prosecutor's table. Derek sat across the aisle in a gray suit, expressionless. Assistant District Attorney Rachel Klein, a domestic violence specialist in her 40s, presented the opening statement, Derek's escalating pattern from isolation in January 2024 to a credible threat by December. Derek's attorney, Marcus Webb, mid-50s in a sharp suit, countered. An overprotective mother misinterpreted normal marital stress. Detective Frank Daniels took the stand first. Rachel asked him about Derek's search history. Frank's voice was steady. "In 15 years working domestic violence cases, I've rarely seen evidence of premeditation this calculated. How to stage a home invasion, life insurance payout timeline, undetectable poisons." These weren't research, they were planning. The jury leaned forward. Harold Meadows testified next, walking them through surveillance findings, Derek's hardware store, purchases, meetings with Vanessa Price, the tracking app, the one-way ticket to the Caymans. Rachel displayed Harold's timeline visualization, 18 months of escalation in a graph. The pattern grew steeper each month. Marcus Webb cross-examined Harold aggressively. Harold remained calm. "I documented behavior. The evidence speaks for itself." On March 19th, I took the stand at 9 o'clock. I swore to tell the truth and looked at Natalie. She gave me the smallest nod. Rachel led me through the timeline. January, the first dinner, Natalie's long sleeves, the flinch, the bruise. February, phone tracking, Derek answering for her, financial control. March, Ashley cut off. April, consulting Philip. May 1st, photographs, Natalie's empty wallet. June to July, public humiliation, hiring Harold. August, rope and plastic sheeting, forged trust fund signatures. September, box 247, life insurance increased to $2.5 million. October, tracking app discovered. November, Natalie's payphone call. Derek's search history. December, the one-way ticket. That's when I knew we had to act immediately. Rachel handed me the journal. 400 pages, I said. Every page dated, every quote exact, every observation witnessed. Why did you document so meticulously? Rachel asked. I looked at the jury. Because I knew someday my daughter would need proof that what she experienced was real, that she wasn't crazy, that someone saw. The courtroom was silent. 2 jurors wiped their eyes. Marcus Webb stood tone-aggressive. Mrs. Brennan, isn't it true you never liked Derek? I kept my voice calm. I didn't need to like him. I needed to protect my daughter from him. You invaded their privacy. You hired a private investigator. You manipulated evidence. I met his eyes. I documented abuse. I gathered legal evidence. I saved my daughter's life. He tried to rattle me with questions about interfering, overstepping an obsession. I didn't break. His final attempt. Your daughter never asked for help. I leaned forward because he made sure she couldn't. That's what abusers do. Rachel stood for redirect. She presented journal entries showing my restraint patient approach, coordination with law enforcement, the dates I'd waited, the careful legal strategy. My testimony ended at 4:30 p.m. The jury's body language had shifted. They believed me. I stepped out of the courthouse. Natalie was waiting on the steps. She wrapped her arms around me. Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. I held her tight. Always, sweetheart. Tomorrow, Natalie would take the stand. The hardest part was hers now. At 9:15 a.m., my daughter rose to take the witness stand. I sat in the gallery beside Christine, our hands clasped so tightly my knuckles went white. Natalie wore a simple navy dress, the kind she used to wear before Derek told her it made her look too confident. Her hands trembled as she raised her right hand to be sworn in. Rachel Klein approached gently. Miss Brennan, can you tell the jury how you met Derek Mitchell? Natalie's voice was soft but steady. We met in 2021 at a charity fundraiser. He was charming, attentive in a way that felt romantic at first. He texted constantly, showed up at my apartment with flowers, wanted to know where I was every moment. I thought it was love. My mom saw it differently. She glanced at me. I nodded. After we married in June 2022, everything changed. Week 1, he criticized my cooking. Month 1, he questioned every friendship. By month 3, he controlled all our finances. I had to ask permission to buy groceries. By month 6, he grabbed my throat during an argument and left bruises I covered with scarves. Rachel handed Natalie a photo, one of 27 we'd documented. Is this you in January 2024? Natalie's voice cracked. Yes. That was the night I told him I wanted to see my mom for her birthday. He shoved me into the kitchen counter. I lied and said I'd slipped on water. The jury leaned forward. He tracked my phone. He monitored my email. He timed my grocery trips. If I was 5 minutes late, he'd accuse me of cheating. He cut off Ashley, my best friend since middle school. He made me feel like I was crazy, like I imagined the danger. Rachel's tone sharpened. Did you keep a journal? I tried. He found it in March 2024 and destroyed it. He said if I ever wrote about him again, I'd regret it. That's when I realized the only person who could document the truth was my mom. She saw what I'd forgotten. She remembered bruises I'd explained away. Her journal became my proof. Rachel nodded. In November 2024, you called your mother from a payphone. Why? Natalie's hands twisted in her lap. Because I found a file on his laptop. He'd left it open one afternoon. The file was named insurance_plan_final.docx. The courtroom went silent. It was a plan. First, he would stage an accident that would end my mother's life. He'd forged documents making me the sole beneficiary of her $2.5 million life insurance policy. After she was gone, I would inherit that money. Then within 6 months, he'd arrange for me to die in a way that looked accidental. Maybe a fall, maybe carbon monoxide poisoning. As my husband and sole heir, he'd inherit everything, the $2.5 million from my mom's policy, the $800,000 trust fund my father left me, and our joint assets. The total was $3.75 million. A juror gasped. The file had a timeline. Target date, December 22, 2024. He'd already booked a one-way flight to the Cayman Islands. No return ticket. Just him. I called my mom because I knew if I didn't act, we'd both be gone by Christmas. Rachel paused. Why didn't you leave sooner? Natalie's voice broke. Because he controlled everything. My phone, my money, my time. Every door I tried to open, he'd already locked. I didn't think I had a way out. My mom built one for me, one page, one photo, one witness at a time. Marcus Webb rose for cross-examination, his tone skeptical. Miss Brennan, isn't it convenient that your mother's journal corroborates every claim you're making today? How do we know you didn't exaggerate events to justify taking your husband's assets in a divorce? Natalie met his eyes. I don't want his money, Mr. Webb. I want my life back. Rachel stood for redirect. Natalie, if your mother hadn't intervened, what would have happened? My daughter looked directly at me, tears streaming down her face. I'd be gone, and Derek would be on an island spending money earned by ending 2 lives. The courtroom fell silent. At 12:30 p.m., Judge Reynolds called for a lunch recess. Natalie stepped down and walked straight to me. I held her as she sobbed into my shoulder. Behind us, Derek's face remained blank. This afternoon, Ashley and Martin would testify. But the hardest truth had already been spoken. Justice was no longer a hope. It was a demand. At 2:00 p.m. on March 20th, the afternoon session began. Ashley Morgan took the stand, first her voice steady as she described watching her best friend disappear into Derek's control. I lost my best friend to a monster, Ashley said, tears in her eyes. I'm grateful to Mrs. Brennan for fighting to bring her back. At 3:00 p.m., Martin Holloway testified about Derek's embezzlement. The threats, the pattern of manipulation and intimidation. Derek threatened my family to keep me silent, Martin said. He's capable of anything. At 3:45 p.m., Douglas Kemp confirmed the safety deposit box timeline and evidence preservation protocols. At 4:15 p.m., the prosecution presented physical evidence. The jury passed my journal hand to hand, examining dates and details. Photos projected on the screen, the jury saw the injuries. Financial documents with forged signatures highlighted. Surveillance footage of Derek tracking Natalie purchasing supplies. Derek's computer search history displayed how to stage a home invasion. The defense rested without calling Derek to testify. He would have been cross-examined about the searches and the insurance plan. At 5:00 p.m., Rachel Klein stood for closing arguments. This case is about premeditated conspiracy, escalating domestic violence, and a mother's courage to document evil. Derek Mitchell didn't just abuse Natalie, he planned to take her life and her mother's life for $3.75 million. Only Diane Brennan's 18 months of vigilant documentation stopped him. 400 pages, 27 photos, dozens of witnesses. The evidence is overwhelming. At 5:30 p.m., Marcus Webb argued weakly. The prosecution relies on a biased mother's observations and circumstantial evidence. Computer searches aren't crimes. Life insurance is normal. My client maintains his innocence. At 5:50 p.m., Rachel delivered her rebuttal. Searching undetectable poisons and stage home invasion, combined with a one-way ticket to the Caymans departing December 15th, isn't coincidence. It's confession. Diane Brennan saved 2 lives. Now you must deliver justice. At 9:00 a.m., the jury began deliberations. I waited in the courthouse victim services room with Natalie and Christine. What if they don't believe us? Natalie whispered. I squeezed her hand. They will. The truth is in every page. At 2:30 p.m., the jury requested to review my journal, a positive sign showing careful attention to evidence. At 4:45 p.m., a note arrived. The jury had reached a verdict. At 5:00 p.m., the courtroom reconvened, gallery packed. Judge Reynolds looked at the jury. Has the jury reached a verdict? The 4-person stood. Yes, Your Honor. The charges were read. Domestic violence, multiple counts. Criminal fraud, $127,000. Stalking. Illegal surveillance. Conspiracy to commit harm, 2 counts, Diane Brennan and Natalie Mitchell. Forgery. Verdict, guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Natalie and I held each other, both of us crying. Derek showed no emotion. Officers led him away to await sentencing. Judge Reynolds set sentencing for April 15, 2025. Media cameras waited outside. I gave a brief statement. This verdict represents every mother fighting to protect her child, every victim finding their voice, every survivor reclaiming their life. My daughter is free. Justice is served. Natalie added, tears streaming. My mother never gave up on me. She saw me when I felt invisible. She saved my life. That night, Natalie and I sat in my kitchen the first time she'd been there since Derek's arrest. I opened my journal to the first entry, January 2024. Tonight I saw fear in my daughter's eyes. I turned to the last page and wrote the final entry, March 21st, 2025. Today I saw freedom in her smile. I closed the journal and looked at my daughter across the table. She was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in years. The war is over. Healing begins. On April 15th, 2025, I walked into courtroom 4B1 final time. Derek sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed. 3 weeks had passed since the guilty verdict on March 21st. Today, Judge Martha Reynolds would decide how many years he'd spend behind bars. At 10 a.m., the hearing began. Rachel Klein addressed the court. Your Honor, the state recommends the maximum sentence based on severity, premeditation, and multiple intended victims. Derek Mitchell planned meticulously over 18 months to harm 2 women for financial gain, totaling $3.75 million. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a business plan. Marcus Webb rose for the defense. Your Honor, my client has no prior violent criminal record. We ask the court for leniency. Rachel didn't hesitate. Your Honor, Mr. Mitchell was forced to resign in 2019 due to harassment. He embezzled $45,000 from a colleague. He forged signatures to steal $82,000 from his wife's trust fund. This is not a man without history. It's a man who's never been held accountable. Until now. Judge Reynolds nodded. We will now hear victim impact statements. At 10:30 a.m., Natalie stood and walked to the podium. She looked directly at Derek. You stole 3 years of my life. You isolated me from everyone who loved me. You tracked my phone, monitored my email, timed my grocery trips. You grabbed my throat. You shoved me into counters. You destroyed my journal. You convinced me I was worthless crazy, imagining danger that was real. Her voice grew stronger. You planned to end my mother's life first so I would inherit her insurance. Then you planned to arrange my death within 6 months to take everything $2.5 million from her policy, $800,000 from my father's trust, and every shared asset. $3.75 million. That's what you thought our lives were worth. She turned to Judge Reynolds. But you failed. Because my mother loved me more than you hated me. I survived, and I will spend my life helping other women escape people like you. I ask this court for the maximum sentence to protect future victims. Natalie returned to her seat. I squeezed her hand tightly. At 10:45 a.m., I stood. Your Honor, for 18 months, I documented my daughter's disappearance while she was still alive. I watched Derek Mitchell systematically destroy the bright, confident woman my husband and I raised. I lived in fear every day that I would receive a call telling me she was gone. I looked at Derek. He refused to meet my eyes. He underestimated a mother's love. He thought surveillance and intimidation would stop me. He was wrong. Every time he hurt her, I wrote it down. Every time he threatened her, I recorded it. Every time he planned to harm her, I gathered evidence. He didn't just fail to take my daughter's life, he created the evidence that sent him to prison. I turned back to the judge. This journal represents hope. Hope that documentation matters. Hope that patience pays off. Hope that justice exists. I ask this court to send a message: mothers protecting their children will be supported. Abusers will be held accountable. Victims will be believed. The courtroom was silent. Judge Reynolds wiped her eyes. At 11:15 a.m., Judge Reynolds looked at Derek. Mr. Mitchell, you have the right to address the court. Do you wish to speak? Derek shook his head. No words, no emotion, no remorse. At 11:30 a.m., Judge Reynolds delivered her sentence. Mr. Mitchell, in 30 years on this bench, I have rarely encountered such calculated cruelty, combined with such comprehensive evidence. You systematically isolated, abused, defrauded, and conspired to harm 2 women for financial gain. Mrs. Brennan's extraordinary documentation prevented 2 deaths. This court recognizes her courage. She read each charge. Domestic violence, multiple counts, 8 years. Criminal fraud, $127,000, 5 years. Stalking and illegal surveillance, 3 years. Conspiracy to cause death, 2 counts, 10 years. Forgery, 2 years. Judge Reynolds looked up. Total sentence 18 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice consecutive. No parole eligibility for 12 years minimum. She continued. The court orders the following restitution. Restitution for actual financial harm. $127,000 to Natalie Mitchell, the exact amount stolen through forgery and embezzlement. This includes $82,000 from her trust fund and $45,000 from Mr. Holloway's company. $25,000 to Diane Brennan for investigative and legal costs. Regarding the conspiracy, while Mr. Mitchell succeeded in stealing $127,000, evidence shows he planned to obtain $3.75 million through a staged double homicide. The difference between what he took and what he intended to take demonstrates the depth of his greed. This court sentence is based not only on completed crimes, but on the calculated harm he sought to inflict. Judge Reynolds looked directly at Derek. You didn't fail because you had a change of heart. You failed because a mother loved her daughter enough to document every step. The 18-year sentence reflects both the harm you caused and the catastrophic harm you intended. She added, permanent protective order, no contact with Diane Brennan or Natalie Mitchell upon release, enforceable for life. The gavel came down. This court is adjourned. Officers led Derek away. He never looked back. Outside, we stood together, Natalie, Christine, Ashley, Philip, Harold, and me. The April sun was warm. Media approached. I gave a brief statement about domestic violence awareness and the power of documentation. Philip confirmed Derek would likely appeal, but was confident the sentence would hold. Harold shook my hand. You did good, Diane. That evening, we gathered at my house. Christine brought wine. Ashley made dessert. Philip raised a toast to Thomas. He would be so proud of both of you, Christine said. Natalie turned to me. Mom, what will you do with the journal now? I smiled. Keep it safe. As proof that love and patience can defeat evil, and share our story to help others. That night, I returned the journal to Box 247 at First National Bank for permanent preservation. Walking out into the cool April evening, I felt a weight lift. Thomas, we kept our promise. Our daughter is safe. Justice is served. Now we can heal. October 2025. 6 months after Derek's sentencing, I stood at the back of a community center watching my daughter teach self-defense to 8 women escaping abuse. Her voice was steady. Her movements were confident. She was no longer a victim. She was a survivor helping others survive. Your body is yours, Natalie told the group. No one has the right to control it or take away your sense of safety. What happened wasn't your fault. You have the power to reclaim your life. One woman in the front row, barely 20, with fading bruises along her jaw, began to cry. Natalie noticed immediately. She knelt beside her, lowering her voice. I know, she said gently. I've been where you are, and I promise you it gets better. I felt my chest tighten. For 18 months, I had watched my daughter disappear. Now I was watching her lead. Healing, I learned, wasn't a destination. It was a daily practice. Natalie lived in a small apartment 10 minutes from my house, close enough for comfort, far enough for independence. She'd chosen it herself, signed the lease herself, and furnished it slowly with secondhand pieces and green plants that filled the windows with light. It was hers, entirely hers. She attended weekly therapy sessions with Dr. Lauren Westfield, unpacking trauma layer by layer. Some weeks left her emotionally exhausted. Others brought quiet breakthroughs. Progress wasn't linear, but it was real. There were still hard days. Nightmares came without warning, Derek's voice, his grip around her throat. Certain songs triggered panic. Financial decisions made her hands shake. Any hint of controlling behavior set off alarms in her nervous system. But she was learning how to recognize triggers, how to ground herself, how to ask for help instead of apologizing for needing it. And slowly, joy returned. She laughed again, real laughter. She made her own decisions. She reconnected with old friends Derek had tried to erase. She revisited passions she'd abandoned when survival took all her energy. Teaching self-defense became her purpose. I can't erase what happened, she told one class, but I can help other women recognize warning signs sooner and know they're not alone. Her friendship with Ashley was rebuilding carefully and honestly. Coffee dates, movie nights, trust reclaimed inch by inch. Natalie wasn't dating yet. She wasn't rushing anything. She was focused on learning who she was without fear shaping every choice. It was a healthy timeline one she set herself. Our relationship had deepened in ways I hadn't expected. Weekly dinners, long conversations, mutual respect, a bond forged not just by love but by survival. I also found purpose beyond my role as her mother. I began volunteering with the Texas Advocacy Project, facilitating support groups for families of domestic violence survivors. With Natalie's permission, I shared parts of our story, helping other parents recognize early warning signs and understand how isolation and control truly work. These stories weren't entertainment, they were survival tools. I used my journal as a teaching aid, showing families how documentation could create legal protection when words alone weren't enough. I began collaborating with advocacy organizations to develop a simple documentation guide, something practical, something usable. In October, a local news station featured our story. Messages poured in from survivors, mothers, and grandmothers who saw themselves in it. One message stayed with me. I thought I was alone. Now I know what to do. Philip Langford helped me establish the Thomas Brennan Documentation Fund, providing investigative support to families who couldn't afford it. My husband's legacy had become something living, something that protected others. I was healing too. 18 months of watching my daughter disappear had left scars of my own. Therapy helped me understand a hard truth. I couldn't control Derek, and I couldn't force Natalie to leave. All I could do was prepare the path she couldn't yet see, and that had been enough. One Saturday afternoon, I visited Thomas's grave alone. "She's back to herself," I whispered. "Actually, stronger. You'd be so proud." The following week, Natalie came with me for the first time since Derek's arrest. She knelt quietly, tears falling freely. "Thank you, Dad," she said, "for giving me Mom. She saved my life." That evening, we sat on my porch drinking tea as the October sun dipped low. "Do you ever wish you'd confronted him sooner?" Natalie asked. "Every day," I admitted. "But rushing could have put you in danger. Waiting saved your life." She nodded, eyes shining. "You gave me something he tried to take from me. Proof. Proof that what I lived through was real and that someone saw me." Later that night, I opened my journal one last time. The first entry read January 2024. Tonight I saw fear in my daughter's eyes. I don't know what to do, but I know I must do something. I added the final entry, October 28th, 2025. Today I watched my daughter teach self-defense to a woman escaping abuse. Natalie isn't just surviving, she's thriving. We walked through 18 months of darkness and came out together, stronger, free. I closed the journal. My phone buzzed. A message from Natalie Dinner at my place tonight I'm cooking. Her first invitation, a small thing, a monumental thing. I smiled and typed back, "I'll be there." Looking back at our family drama stories, I see what I couldn't see then. Sometimes love means watching, waiting, and documenting when you can't yet rescue. Don't be like me in one way, don't let fear paralyze you each night, but do be like me in another. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong in family drama stories like ours. God gave me eyes to see what others missed. In 18 months of darkness, I learned that faith isn't just prayer, it's action. It's writing down truth when lies surround you. God provides strength to bear witness even when you can't intervene yet. My lesson to other mothers: if you see your daughter disappearing, start documenting immediately. Dates, times, photos, quotes. Every detail matters in family drama stories. These aren't just entertainment, they're warnings. Grandma stories aren't just nostalgia, they're survival guides. My grandma stories became Natalie's legal shield when the system needed proof. I learned that confrontation without preparation is dangerous. Patience isn't weakness, it's strategy. God's timing protected us when my impatience could have gotten Natalie killed. Don't ignore red flags. Don't dismiss fear as overreaction. Don't wait for permission to protect someone you love. Do document everything. Do build legal evidence. Do trust that love backed by proof defeats evil. If you're living similar grandma stories right now as victim or witness, know this: you're not alone. Help exists. Documentation saves lives. Final note: This content contains dramatized storytelling elements for educational purposes. Some details are fictionalized, but the lessons and messages are entirely valuable. If this style doesn't suit you, that's okay. Please seek content that better fits your needs.